Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our third and final evening of the Class 12 projects. Whether you are listening right here in the hall, or whether you're watching online tonight, or in another time. It's exciting that once again we're managing to stream this and to send it out to the wider world to see what these amazing young people have done over these last 9 months. This is the culmination of the kind of big 3 Waldorf Class 12 processes. So it's at the end of the Waldorf curriculum. They get these 3 big challenges alongside all of their regular schoolwork. They do a play where they work together very much and create something collectively. And they do work with eurythmy when they're working with expressing themselves in their bodies on stage. And now we're going to hear some more of their voices, their personal voices, what they have been exploring and are going to be taken into the world now as young adults. So, without further ado, if you are in the room, please make sure your cell phone is switched off. You can leave it on if you're home. And I'm going to hand over to the first speaker.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd just like to add a content warning to my presentation. The following topics may be sensitive to a few. These topics include calorie counting, weight loss, and muscle gain. If anyone would like to leave, you can. I won't get offended at all. Have you ever wondered what it was like to achieve a goal you've been longing to achieve, such as a goal to lose weight, gain muscle, or even gain strength? What if I told you I've created a blog that will help you achieve those goals? Lightweight has it all for you. Hello, my name is Arid Tyre, and I'll be talking to you about my fitness journey throughout the year, how I started, why I chose to do it, what I've learned, my exercise schedule, diet, and blog I've created for you. I started my fitness journey in February of this year in order to push myself out of my comfort zone and achieve what I've always dreamt of achieving. I was bullied for 9 consecutive years of my life and fat shamed for being overweight. I'd often get called names such as Farid, which meant fat Arib, or I was called a pig. I started this journey in order to prove everyone wrong that ever wronged me, but after some time it became part of my life. The gym gave me a safe space in which I could be myself and escape from all my negative thoughts. It helped me create the person who I am today. At first, I had no clue where to start. I did however gym before, but I had no clue how to bulk up in a healthy manner as well as lose body fat. I started by doing some research and testing what I found online. I started by reducing my calorie intake by 300 to 500 calories a day and followed a diet. However, I kept failing over and over again. I then reached out to a dietitian by the name of Kim Hoffman. Kim taught me that most people that achieve their goals don't even stick to a diet, but rather choose a healthy alternative. For example, say you have a bottle of Coca-Cola in front of you, as well as a bottle of water. We all know which is the healthy alternative, and it's definitely not the Coca-Cola. I started my fitness journey in February of this year. Oh, wait. She taught me to think when I'm hungry by using my mind and linking my mind to my stomach. And after 3 hours, I would ask myself, am I really hungry, or am I just craving food? This is a picture of myself that I took in February of this year. I didn't like what I saw in the mirror, and I was lacking self-confidence and had a low self-esteem. I started my journey by gymming 6 times a week and rested on a Sunday. I would gym 2-3 muscle components each day, and it would take me around an hour to work out each muscle component. I would also link some muscle components with each other. Take for instance, when bench pressing, you're using your tricep muscle as well as your chest muscle. On days I would bench press, I would link my tricep workout to my chest workout. Same goes for shoulders, back and biceps, as well as legs and calves. After gym, I try and get my daily dose of protein in, which would require 2 scoops of whey protein, water, blended with a banana. This, however, is a picture of myself now. I've gained an immense amount of strength and agility. I'm able to lift almost double the amount from when I started, and I've gained an immense amount of muscle mass. Throughout the year, I had some challenges. One of them was the month of Ramadan. I wasn't able to eat nor drink throughout the day, which made it difficult for me to go to the gym due to the fact that I was lacking energy. Another is level 4 lockdown. I wasn't able to go to the gym, and I was forced to work out at home. I then called out to a friend by the name of Caden Sampson, who goes to SACS. Caden is a natural bodybuilder. Unlike many bodybuilders, Caden doesn't use supplements at all. My exercise schedule was pretty tough, and a lot of the time I overworked myself. Usually I do around 3 sets for each workout or exercise, but I pushed myself to sometimes do around 6 to 8 sets in exercise. Misconceptions. A lot of people, as well as myself, make mistakes on their journey. One of them is that people often think you can get bigger arms by just training your bicep muscles, but we're mistakenly wrong. In order to gain bigger muscles on your arms, you need to train your tricep muscles as well. The tricep muscle is split into 3 categories: the lateral head, the medial head, and the long head. The lateral head you can train from doing diamond push-ups or bar push-downs. The medial head you can train from doing rope push-downs and overhead dumbbell extensions. And the long head you can train by doing lying tricep extensions or even short grip bench presses, which is there. Another massive misconception is that lifting stunts your growth. And we all know there's a huge controversy around this topic. As teenagers, we are told by our parents that lifting may stunt your growth. However, there's no scientific proof behind it. Lifting weights increases bone strength, self-esteem, and promotes a healthy routine for teenagers. What I've learned. You have to learn how to think during this journey, and often have to create countless goals for yourself. Once you've reached your goal, you have to think about what are you going to do next, and follow up on it. Once you've changed your eating as well as exercise habits, what will happen when you reach your goal? Many people tend to stop dieting and exercising once they've reached their goal, and go back to their normal eating habits and gain all their weight back. Instead, people should focus on changing their eating and exercise habits for health reasons, as well as energy reasons. The blog. While going through my journey, I put together a blog for those who'd like to join me in order to reach their goals. The blog is situated on the Wix.com app, and it's called Lightweight. Lightweight offers you exercise schedules and information on how to reach whichever goal you're trying to reach. Looking forward to what I've created from my journey these past few months, I would like to maintain what I've managed to build up for myself and follow my healthy eating habits as well as exercise routines. My mental health has developed, and I've gained an immense amount of self-confidence and self-esteem. During Ramadan, I gained a sense of discipline from the challenges I encountered and realized that a healthy lifestyle equals a healthy mind and a good mental health. During this process, I had to create countless deadlines for myself, work on my project during the holidays, and I had to work at my mom's art gallery in order to pay for my dietitian bills. While creating my essay, blog, and this oral, I had to work on my phone, which was a huge challenge for me because I didn't have a laptop at the time. During this process, I learned perseverance, determination, independence, and how to tackle my responsibilities. What I've achieved? Well, in the past 5 months, I've lost 10 kilograms, gained an immense amount of muscle, and I'm able to lift 50 to 60 kilograms more in every exercise that I do. If you're dealing with something psychological, gym doesn't completely solve it. I'd advise you to see a professional or reach out to someone you trust. I would like to say thank you to a number of people. Firstly, Lulu for mentoring me throughout the entire process. Kim for helping me figure out when I was comfort eating and when I was actually hungry. A huge thanks to my guardians, Anya and Simrik, for giving me the support I needed in tough times throughout the year. Lisa for helping me with my oral. My buddy Storm, who's sitting over there somewhere, for helping me in the gym and pushing me in every single workout. Also, I'd like to thank my girlfriend for supporting me in every obstacle I encountered. And last but not least, I'd like to thank my parents for showing me the support I needed, as well as the gym equipment they got me through the process. Thank you.
I've always had an admiration for flight. If you asked me what superpower I wanted, I would say that I would like to be able to fly. There is, however, a slight hitch. My long legs don't fit in a plane, and I'm terribly afraid of heights. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the audience. My name is Callum Tisdall, and today I'm going to be telling you about my experience in making a quadcopter, or drone as it's more commonly known, in my pursuit of flight. First, let me give you a little understanding of drones. Drones are split into 3 main categories: single rotor, fixed wing, and multi-rotor drones. Single rotors are those that resemble a helicopter. They're good for long-range flights, but are quite dangerous with that big old propeller on the top. Second, we have fixed-wing drones. They look like a plane and are great for long, high-speed flying at long distances. And finally, there's the multi-rotor drone. A quadcopter, which is the type of drone that I built, falls into this category. Multi-rotors can have anywhere between 3 and 8 propellers and can start to look a bit monstrous. I decided I wanted to build a quadcopter, which is a multi-rotor drone, but within quadcopters there are a few categories. There's the aerial photography-based drone, the freestyle flying drone, and racing drones. This is where I had to make my first big decision. And it wasn't an easy one. Aerial photography drones, as the name suggests, are oriented around taking pictures and videos. Freestyle flying drones are based around doing fancy tricks and flips, and racing drones, as the name suggests, are made to be fast and agile to make their way through a race course. I originally intended to make a freestyle flying drone, but in the end I changed my mind and decided to make a racing drone. My main reason being that it was like having a flying sports car. In retrospect, this was probably not the most thought out of reasons. Anyway, moving on. First, I'm going to be telling you about the intricacies of the parts of the drone and the differences between a brushed and brushless motor and how an electric motor using an electromagnet works. I'm just kidding. I'm going to explain the main parts of a drone just so that you can understand what I'm talking about a bit. But I'm going to simplify the whole thing down as much as I can in liberty of your experience. And as such, I will be making many comparisons to a car, as I hope all of you in the audience are more familiar with the components of a car. If you don't understand the basics of cars, well then today's your lucky day, as I will be explaining a car in terms of a drone. A standard drone has 9 parts: the frame, the flight controller, the electronic speed controller, the motors, the propellers, the camera, the video transmitter, the radio receiver, and the battery. In some cases, you might also need a power distribution board, but the power distribution board is often built into the electronic speed controller. First, we have the frame, the body of our theoretical car. The frame is made out of carbon fiber sheets, as carbon fiber is very rigid and hard to break, but is still relatively light. If you were flying a drone that didn't have a carbon fiber frame, it would have to be made of plastic or metal. A plastic frame is like a rally car without a roll cage and no brakes, and a metal frame is like trying to make a tank into a helicopter. The size and shape of the frame also has a big role to play, and the shape determines how many motors you can have. The shape determines whether you'll be flying a motorized unicycle, a motorbike, a tuk-tuk, a normal car, or a tank. The size of the frame changes whether you're going to end up with anything between a smart car and a Ferrari. Then next we have the flight controller. The flight controller is the brain on board the drone, similar to the ECU of the car. It takes the inputs from the controller that has been given from the receiver, and using a gyro that is built in, determines how the motor speeds must change. And how this change will change the orientation in the drone. Following the flight controller is the next most important thing, the electronic speed controller. The electronic speed controller is like the engine of a car. It supplies power to the motors and changes the speed depending on how the orientation must change according to the flight controller. The next part is the motor. The motor combined with the propellers act as the wheels of the drone. Most quadcopters use what is called a brushless motor. Inside a brushless motor is a series of coils and an outer lining of magnets. The coils are turned on and act as electromagnets being attracted to the magnets, causing rotation. The AC turns the coils on and off, causing even more rotation. The size changes how much weight the motor can lift and also the motor's top speed. Then we have the propellers. The propellers act as the wheels and also determine what gear the drone is in. The size of the propeller has to be matched to the size of the motor, otherwise it would be like a city golf with tractor wheels or a Land Rover with motorbike wheels. The propellers also vary in pitch, meaning how much of an angle the blades of the propellers are at. The higher the pitch, the higher the gear, vice versa. If you have a high pitch and therefore a high gear, it won't perform well at lower speeds. If the propeller has a lower pitch, it won't perform well at higher speeds. Now for the camera. The camera is essentially what puts you inside the car. Without the help of the camera and your goggles, you would be trying to control a sports car like it were a remote control toy. If you have a high... there's not much to talk about here other than cameras allow you to see more, and some provide you with better quality images. Next up, we have the video transmitter. The video transmitter connects the camera to your goggles. It's like the windscreen. If you didn't have a video transmitter, you would be driving a car with a completely blacked out windscreen. You can try and stick your head out the side and drive, but it just won't end well. The main difference you see in video transmitters is the difference in range they allow for, some allowing for longer distances, while some only allow for shorter distances. The next part is the radio receiver. The radio receiver, as the name implies, receives messages from the controller, namely the radio transmitter, and gives them to the flight controller. It's like the steering column that connects the steering wheel to the wheels. Finally, we have the battery. If you can't figure this one out, I would be a little worried. The battery powers the whole drone. Without it, nothing would work, like an engine with no fuel. Each battery is made up of multiple cells and combined into one pack. The bigger your drone is, or the longer you want to fly, the bigger your battery will need to be. Of course, there is also the remote control and the goggles. The controller is like the steering wheel, the accelerator, and the brake. Use the controller to control the drone. The goggles serve as your eyes, and I sure hope no one here drives without eyes. Now that you have a general idea of what goes into a drone, let's move on to the hard part. So my original design for a freestyle flying drone was leaning towards something like this. After I changed my idea and decided to build a racing drone, I started using this as my goal. This is a picture of a Dji Fpv drone. Dji is a very prominent drone company, so I wanted to use one of their drones as my aim. Well, it ended up with something like this. A mess of wires and many, many technical problems. I was a complete beginner who had no experience with electronics and soldering, and I was given a complex set of circuit boards and wires. If I could, I would take back some of the many hours that I lost trying to figure out what wire went where, and even just a few of the layers of skin that I lost to the soldering iron. To put it very simply, the battery is linked to the electronic speed controller, the motors and the flight controller are linked to the electronic speed controller, the video transmitter, the radio receiver, and the camera are all then linked to the flight controller. Then everything can be put onto the frame. Every single part has a different set of terminals that it needs to be soldered to, and to a complete beginner like me, it was all gibberish. Hopefully that confused you, as it certainly confused me. After a steep learning curve, I met up with Dale, one of my external mentors, who had lots of experience with circuit boards and soldering, and he helped me put a bit of method into my madness. Unfortunately, every single battery suitable for my drone had gone out of stock, so we couldn't even test if the whole thing worked. Anyway, I managed to get a battery after many weeks of waiting, and after many, many, many hours of hard work, it didn't work. After a few manic hours of confusement and panic later, I realized I had a fatal flaw. The receiver didn't work. It was broken. I had to buy a brand new receiver, only to realize later that I had to install new firmware on it. I headed over to Flying Robot, a local drone making company, where Jaco, my external mentor, helped me to configure my drone and get the receiver working. It wasn't a simple task. It had to be linked up to a computer and manually set with a software called Betaflight, which took hours, and I'm still confused as to how Betaflight really works. Anyway, after all this, I ended up with a drone. I'm not the best pilot, and my short first and last 15-second flight ended with an abrupt crash. I'm too scared to fly it again, let alone race it. It's theoretically able to go up to around 200 kilometers per hour, but I'm too terrified to even try to get close to that. Yeah. Building this drone gave me many hardships, but it was truly a satisfying process that left me with a great sense of accomplishment. And it still gives me a giddy, childlike feeling every time I boot it up. Now that I have entered the world of drones, I think it will be hard to remove myself from it. Before I finish up, I would like to say a few thank yous. First of all, to my parents. I owe them both a great debt for all the support they have given me to push through and finish my drone, and monetarily, because I couldn't pay for it. And of course, to my external mentors, Jaco and Dale. Without the two of them, I would be presenting to you a pile of wires and components that don't do anything in particular. I learned a great deal from the both of them. And finally, to Mr. Musa, who probably hates me by now, and now that he knows what it's like to work with me, is dreading having me in his class for physical sciences next year. I'm looking forward to it, Mr. Musa, even if you aren't. I think you can all look forward to the day I enter my first drone race as a pilot, and most probably crash. Thank you.
As someone who's been in Waldorf my whole life, I've been both looking forward to and mildly dreading the Class 12 project presentations since I can remember. I've always been in awe of what each year has achieved, and I found it quite daunting to choose my own project. Choosing a topic for me was a whirlwind. I considered so many things, and one of these was creating a confectionery cookbook. I also very seriously considered focusing on singing, but I decided against it as it's something I've been doing for many years, and I wanted to challenge myself to do something new, something I've never done before. I've always loved finer baking, and I initially wanted to focus on learning everything when it came to confectionery, but this was too much, and so then I thought about what I really loved in confectionery, and the answer came to me: chocolate. My name is Nina, and for my Class 12 project, I chose to learn the art and skill of chocolate making, and I created a brand called Nushka. When the decision was finally made, I realized I actually needed to learn how to make chocolate. So it was time to find a real chocolatier, someone who could be my external mentor. Through family luck, I found out about Richard von Gousseau, a chocolatier in Greyton. I sent him a very kind of cautious message about what it would entail and asked if he could help me throughout my journey. Being the incredibly kind and generous man that he is, he agreed, and so I went up to meet him. And soon after, I ended up there for a weekend, going to see his little factory and seeing how everything worked. It was here that I made my first truffles with him. It was a raspberry and orange truffle, and I also learned some handy tricks like tempering with a hairdryer, which I tried out at home, and it didn't work as my hairdryer was much too strong and chocolate went everywhere, including the ceiling, on the walls, and all over me. But it was over this weekend that I made the first real step into the real chocolate world, and I could not wait to figure out everything else for myself. And thus, a long journey of experimentation started. My first truffle at home was a coffee ganache. And while it didn't turn out terribly, I had yet to master the art of temperature control, something that is incredibly crucial and very difficult when it comes to chocolate making. And the ganache in the inside was porridgey. It looked like porridge, and it did not look great. This prompted a very panicked message to Richard, but he was able to guide me through it, telling me it was just temperature. I got my temperatures wrong. And while it didn't look that great, it tasted pretty good, and the recipe was actually okay, to be honest. Soon afterwards, I had my first success. I made a big batch of coffee truffles for Easter. And while the tempering was not perfect, I managed to have a product of 46 truffles, the ganache was right, and everybody loved it. This weekend made me realize that I may be able to avoid making a complete mess out of my project, and that I may have something at the end I'm proud of. I then started to play around with flavor. For me, flavor was something that I really wanted to have in my chocolates. I wanted it to be delicious, and I also wanted them to be slightly unique. And I really wanted to avoid using any artificial flavoring. I started out with some very extravagant ideas, such as choosing 4 countries from each continent and then having flavors to represent those 4 countries in my chocolates. It soon proved very impractical, so I next took a blank piece of paper and a pen and just brainstormed every single flavor compilation that I could come up with, even if it was completely absurd. Some of these included paprika and thyme and honey. I'm not sure where those came from. But I knew from the beginning that I wanted to have my Slovakian heritage in my brand, and so that's maybe where the paprika came from. But after many trial and error, and having my family taste many different ganaches that, to be honest, probably weren't that great, I managed to narrow it down to 8 truffle flavors and 5 chocolate slabs. Part of my project was that I needed to create a brand and a website. This was not easy for me, as I had no clue where to start. However, I knew that I wanted my name to resonate with me. I wanted it to have some meaning, and I also ideally wanted it to hint to my heritage, as well as I really wanted the packaging to be eco-friendly, to have no plastic in it. After many months, I finally settled on the name Nushka. This name came up during a family dinner, and it comes from the name Ninushka, which is a term of endearment that my grandparents in Slovakia call me. This felt very appropriate because it celebrated my heritage as well as where my love for cooking came from, the kitchens of my Slovakian grandparents and that of my mother. My mother, since I can remember, has always loved preserving fruits and alcohol, and we have smuggled many times bottles of slivovitz, a plum brandy, and many other things through customs back to South Africa for friends and family. And so I thought it would be appropriate to honor this tradition by making a slivovitz truffle as well as a rum and cherry truffle. Now, once I had the name, I found it actually quite easy to create my branding and my labels. And with this out of the way, I was like, okay, cool, I'm on the way. I'm on track, it's going great. However, one aspect I didn't expect to come across in the process was the ethics of chocolate. In researching the history and making of chocolate, I found out about the horrifying slave labor that still defines much of the commercial chocolate. I call it the hidden ingredient in chocolate. Big brands like Nestle and Hershey and Mars still continue to use cocoa that is produced using child labor and slavery. This happens mostly in West Africa, in Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire. These children are usually either kidnapped by traffickers or they have been fed an empty promise where they're going to get paid so that they can give money back to their families. And they're also promised an education. Most of the time, this doesn't happen. And this shocked me. And so I realized that labels like fair trade mean so much more than I had originally thought. And so I chose to ensure that all chocolate I used was ethically sourced, had the fair trade mark, and was approved by the Rainforest Alliance. As we got closer to crunch time, cracks started to show. My tempering skills still weren't up to par, which meant that it was still not shiny and it had white streaks in it, as well as my health started to take a dip. Last year, after many blood tests, I was diagnosed with severe anemia. And the doctors gave me 2 options, either an 8 to 10 hour stint in the hospital on a drip, or the long way, which I chose, which was a change in diet, cutting out gluten, and many, many supplements. I've gotten better. I mean, it's been a year now, but I'm still only halfway. And with the added stress of the projects, it took so much energy out of me that I started feeling that same weakness and exhaustion, and it terrified me as I struggled to get out of bed in the morning. And I actually couldn't come to school for a bit. This threw a major wrench in the works, especially in the last 2 weeks when I needed to be on top form. And to be honest, I almost gave up. I'm an incredibly self-sufficient, meaning I hate asking for help, procrastinating perfectionist. And I was having to face the fact that I wouldn't be able to finish my project to the same standard that I thought I would be. This really threw me, and I started to doubt myself, and I felt like I was letting people down. However, I realized that this project wasn't about pleasing other people. It was about figuring out who I am, and at the end of the day, about completing something that I would be proud of. This realization gave me strength, and with the help of my internal mentor, Anya, advice from doctors and from my parents, I was able to put in the last push. While I may not have gotten my chocolate into shops, I am proud of what I managed. I created a brand, largely taught myself how to make truffles and slabs, and came up with my own flavors and my own recipe book. My chocolates are different and quirky, and most definitely look artisanal. I'm not sure what the future holds for Nushka, but I really enjoyed the process, and I learned so much about chocolate and about building a brand. But most importantly, I learned that I can't expect 100% from myself all the time. I realized that sometimes perfection is overrated, and that asking for help is not always a weakness. I found that I can feel pride in something that isn't 100% perfect, even if I don't think I can face another bite of chocolate for some time to come. I really need to say a big thank you to Richard, my internal mentor, who was there every single time I had panicked questions. And not only did he teach me how to make chocolate, but he inspired me to think outside the box when it came to presentation and especially flavors. My friends, who were always there for me and helped me and checked my absolutely atrocious spelling. My brother, even though he wasn't that interested in my project, never failed to give me a big brotherly hug when I needed one. Anya, my internal mentor, thank you so much for all the help. You really guided me through this, and without you, it wouldn't have been possible. And last but not least, my parents. I honestly couldn't have done this without you. There aren't words to express how grateful I am. But I love you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Picture this, Zanzibar, a hot, humid evening, sitting around the beach bar with a cocktail in your hand, a moonlit sky with palm trees in the background. Now, Eastern music starts playing. A stunning belly dancer enters the arena. Her dancing totally captivates the audience, and they are mesmerized watching her every move. Her dancing is a mixture of sexuality, beauty, and femininity. My name is Sophia LaRue, and my project was to learn belly dancing. The word Raqs in my title means dance in Arabic. I was a tourist in Zanzibar when this happened and felt quite intrigued by this dancing performance. It was a little bit different to dancing I'd seen before, and it struck me as a powerful, strong symbol of women empowerment. Unlike many other forms of female representations in the media that we are exposed to in life, such as modeling, ballet, the Instagram influencers, belly dancing incorporates women of many different ages and different body types. The essence of belly dancing is to unite women and make them feel powerful no matter their age and shape. You might even be a slightly better belly dancer if you have a bigger belly. I knew nothing about belly dancing when I started this journey, but the whole concept intrigued me. I decided I would like to learn how to belly dance and also around the background to the style of dancing. My first mistake was thinking it was going to be easy. My second mistake was thinking that I was flexible. However, thanks to my wonderful belly dancing teacher, Natasha, and after many hours of her patiently tutoring me, I feel that I've been able to develop my skills as a rookie belly dancer. Part of this learning experience was developing the choreography for this performance. In the beginning, this felt completely overwhelming because I had to both learn the dance moves and choose the songs that could reflect my personality doing the style of dancing. I'm sure my classmates would agree that I'm quite a reserved and quiet person, except when I've had too many gin and tonics. This project to learn belly dancing took me out of my quiet, reserved comfort zone. I had to learn some quite difficult technical skills and improve my fitness level. I realized just how unfit I actually was when I started doing belly dancing. However, I think it's important to share some of the feelings I experienced once I managed to do some of the belly dancing moves. Firstly, I started developing an awareness of my own body, and belly dancing made me feel more like a woman. I felt more in touch with the soft and feminine side of myself, as well as the strong and confident side of myself. I had a similar feeling when I learned karate as a child. In order to understand the background of belly dancing, I attended the Belly Dancing Festival in Gardens with my belly dancing teacher. This was held on World Belly Dancing Day, and I saw many different dances and many different styles of dancing. The belly dancing costumes and music were amazing. Many of the belly dancing costumes were handmade with colorful glittering designs, and many of the costumes were based on a certain character. They were individual and group performances, but it was lovely to feel the positive energy from the performers and the audience who were cheering everyone on. The belly dancers encouraged each other by loud whistling and clapping, and it was a really fun experience. This event really showed how women could unite with one another. There was a lot of excitement at the event because a lot of belly dancers had previously had their performances restricted due to COVID. And the belly dancers were amazingly friendly women, and I had the opportunity to chat with some of them. It seemed like belly dancing really brought out the best in a lot of people, and I felt that I wanted to be a part of this wonderful community. Belly dancing is an ancient art form that has been practiced in Eastern culture for many centuries. Originally, belly dancing was used to help women recover after birth and enhance their future fertility. Originally, it had a precise meaning in terms of ritual and ceremony, for it expressed the mysteries of life and death as people understood them then. Over time, it has become a secular dance style not related specifically to religion and is now often performed by professional entertainers. I chose 2 songs for my performance, one Western song and one Eastern song. I'm interested in how Western and Eastern cultures come together. In actual fact, I'm a rainbow child born from a Western father and an Eastern mother. I wanted my belly dancing performance to reflect a bit of the ancient Eastern style, but also show how belly dancing can be used with a modern Western song. I enjoyed immersing myself in the belly dancing music and the moves. I had to be bold in my song choices and hope that everyone would enjoy the mix. My own self-confidence grew as my belly dancing performance came together. Certain dance moves I chose myself to reflect my own individual style. You may have noticed that the belly dancing costumes have intricate designs and are usually handmade. I chose this beautiful outfit from Natasha's collection to reveal the sparkly side of my personality, which is usually well hidden. Learning dance moves is not easy. In the beginning, many of the dance moves felt foreign to me, and I wondered if I'd ever be able to put a dance together. As my dancing improved, the moves started to feel more natural to me, and I started to experience the true positive side of belly dancing. No matter how I may have looked on stage tonight, good or bad, I feel a huge sense of accomplishment in getting this far and learning this new skill in just a few short months. What I realized from this project is that if I apply my mind to achieve a certain goal, I can do it. Part of my personal growth was to develop my self-confidence. Although belly dancing seems like a physical thing, it has an emotional impact as well. I felt empowered as a woman doing belly dancing, and it made me realize the importance of women in our world today. It's often said that it's a man's world and women's rights may not be prioritized. Hopefully my performance tonight was an expression of women power. In ending, I'd like to thank Simric and Anya for supporting us with our projects and organizing these extra special evenings. I also want to thank Gareth, my internal mentor, for supporting me and guiding me along the way, even although I changed my project halfway through the process. I would also like to give a special thanks to my mom and dad for supporting me along the way and guiding me, because this wouldn't have been possible without them, and to my younger sister Sarah, who made me laugh during times where I felt the most stressful. My belly dancing project would not have been possible without the input from my phenomenal teacher, Natasha. I feel privileged to have met such an inspiring, beautiful person who taught me a lot more than just belly dancing. I do hope to learn new belly dancing skills in the future, but seriously, I think that this project has been a milestone in my journey to self-development. I'm so very grateful to you, Natasha, for all that you have done for me, including the late-night belly dancing sessions. Please come up to the stage. I would like to give you a gift as my token of appreciation. Pleasure. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, we're going to take an interval for about 15 minutes to allow people here to look around the stalls, and then we'll be back with the last 4 presentations.
In the beginning of my project, I really had no idea what I was going to do. My first idea was to compose some pieces and then have them performed. I mostly chose that because I had already been composing pieces, so it would be minimal effort on my part. However, during the December holidays, I realized that I had created nothing substantial, and I was kind of at a loss. So I had to think of something else to do. So, one day I was sitting outside doing nothing, as usual, and my stepmom comes out and asks me what I'm going to do for my project. And I tell her, I don't know. So she and I decide to brainstorm about the topic, and eventually she mentions the possibility of ballet, and I am immediately intrigued. I thought ballet would be a good choice because one of the main points of the project was for me to jut out of my comfort zone and do something I wasn't really comfortable with. And also I needed to become a bit more active due to being inside all day, thanks to Corona. So I decided to join the same class as my stepmom, and I was ready to start by that very next week. I really didn't know what to expect on the way to the class. I had some preconceptions about ballet and some concerns about how the lessons would turn out. I always thought ballet was for rich people who wanted to seem classier than they actually were. Yeah, I had this subconscious assumption that maybe I wouldn't really fit in. It was also noteworthy that I was a boy doing ballet, as if you do ballet as a man, the obvious assumption is that you are gay, somehow. But this is typical for most men doing artistic things in their lives, unfortunately. However, I didn't want this project of me doing ballet just to be about me being a boy doing it. I didn't want the focal point of my project to be the controversy of me doing ballet. I just wanted to do ballet because I wanted to do something I hadn't really done before, and I thought it would have other health benefits. So finally, when I came to the class, I was unsurprisingly nervous. I was expecting an authoritarian teacher who would criticize your every move, and I was expecting all the students to be upper class, bourgeois, and snobbish. I thought maybe if there were enough people in the class, I could hide in the back of the room and be invisible and pray to God that the teacher wouldn't notice me. However, these expectations did not come to fruition. I entered the class, and to my horror, I found out that there was only one other person in the class. So there I was, green as I could be, front and center in the class. Yeah. Thankfully, my teacher and external mentor knew how helpless I really was. Amy Gould was really a godsend during the whole process, but she was especially helpful during the beginning stages. However, the first lesson definitely was not all sunshine and rainbows, because Amy made us work. I stretched things I didn't know I had, and after the first lesson, I was more tired than I'd ever been in my entire life. However, despite all this, I knew it was the project for me. A few weeks later, Amy suggested that I should take private lessons where we could discuss specific aspects of my project. During these lessons, I was taught a whole lot of things. I learned how all my preconceptions of ballet were false, and I also learned about the culture of ballet and the culture around ballet, about how cultures around the world can affect your whole worldview about things. I learned that it was wrong for me to assume that I would somehow become gay from doing ballet. For example, in Spain, it is seen as a very masculine thing to dance. There are many examples I could list, but the main point is how societal preconceptions of dance are at best inconsistent. These lessons really broadened my understanding of how arbitrary these ideas of dance and gender are, how ideas about gender are arbitrary in general, along with how society can plant ideas in your head that, well, can just be absolutely incorrect. There's no reason why doing something benign as dancing would imply anything about how I identify. These views and labeling of others can really hurt people in some cases. And me doing ballet really helped me realize this. In these private lessons, I also learned about the history of ballet and how it was originally used to signify one's class. I won't get into details, but the highly summarized version is this. Ballet was used to signify class differences. So the idea was, if you knew how to dance ballet, then therefore you must be of the upper echelon of society. This is obviously not the case once you actually start taking lessons. There's nothing about ballet that inherently conforms to the upper class. All you need to do is work hard and try to improve, then you can do ballet. Even for the short amount of time that I've been doing ballet, I've had to work very hard on the simplest and most basic of movements. Ballet is about the very precise movements, the meticulous perfection of the art form. Simply taking a step forward is not an unconscious task. To put it shortly, ballet is very hard, especially for someone like me. I came to ballet as flexible as a plank of wood, and not very fit to say the least. I was made to stretch and stretch and stretch. I had to go home every day and pull myself into strange positions to improve. I had to keep my back up straight and suck my stomach in. I had to make sure my shoulders were above my hips, and I had to make sure that my knees were stretched. And any deviation from the correct form would come with a gentle smack from Amy, with love, of course. I also had to learn how to point my foot properly, which wasn't easy due to me having, and I quote Amy, "fraught fish at the end of my legs." So needless to say, I had lots I could improve on. Even 8 months later, I have difficulty doing the most simplest things. So, unfortunately, I won't be able to prance across the stage freely and do an amazing performance. However, I do have a little thing to show you, which now, unfortunately, will be on the internet forever. Anyway, I can hear Amy screaming at home already. But I will see her on Monday, so she will be able to tell me exactly what I did wrong then. Despite my tone, I really do enjoy doing ballet. Something about how it feels to move around, the joy of seeing myself improve. So I will be continuing ballet in the future. The opportunity to dance came to me at a time where I really needed an escape. So doing an art form really helped with that. On this journey of ballet, I really learned a lot. It helped me with where I was at the time. It was nice going to lessons twice a week and just dancing. It was nice going to a class of people who are in the same boat as me. I feel that it was probably one of the best things that happened to me this year. Now, before I conclude, I have to thank people, as is tradition. I would first like to thank my stepmom, Bernice, for giving me the idea to do ballet and coming with me for the first 2 lessons. Thank you. I would like to thank my sister for Ubering me to the ballet classes. I'd like to thank my dad's deep pockets for paying for the ballet. I'd like to thank my internal mentor, Keaton, for telling me to get my work done and me never doing it until the last second. And finally, I'd like to thank my external mentor, Amy Gould, for helping me throughout the entire way with my dance moves and with me personally. Thank you so much, and I'm sorry I've fraught fish on the end of my legs. And though my Class 12 project may have come to its end, I have many other projects I need to get on with. Thank you.
I'm 25 meters in the air, clinging desperately to the final 2 handholds of sterling silver. My arms protest my weight. With a massive effort, I try to pull the rope up and clip the final 2 drawers. My mind drifts. What happens if I fall right now? I suddenly drop the rope and grab on as tightly as I can. Take, I yell. I hold on as long as my arms will allow before I plummet 8 meters until the rope stops my fall. My name is Justin Heathcote Marks, and when I chose this as my classwork project, I had no idea what I was signing myself up for. I decided that I was going to get a wide experience of all the different aspects of rock climbing. I was going to do outdoor climbing, gym climbing, high wall climbing, bouldering, and speed climbing. One of the first things I learned, which I found to be amazing and unexpected, is the aspect of camaraderie amongst the rock climbers. Whether you're at a sport gym or out at Silvermine climbing, any climber you come across is incredibly likely to be really friendly, happy to chat and give advice, and will even help you get your gear off the rock face if you fail to finish your climb. The rock climbing community is genuinely the most friendly group of human beings I have ever encountered. But to the climbing. Rock climbing is often stereotyped to be an arm-focused, muscle-your-way-up kind of deal. And even after I started climbing, I was also under that impression. But I'm here to disillusion all of you. You don't even need to be able to do 2 consecutive pull-ups to climb harder stuff than I managed in this 8-9-month project. Sure, strong arms can help in some situations, but mostly only when you make a clumsy move. There is a fantastically large amount to be said for technique and all-rounded body strength. What you do need to be strong are your fingers. Your fingers are the most used set of muscles throughout your entire body while rock climbing. Once you've got strong fingers, all you need to do is shift your weight to the right angle, move your body around, and manipulate yourself into a good enough position to move forwards. It's problem solving. Problem solving that is very specific to your own physical capabilities. Everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. Some people are really short, some people are tall, some people are in between. Some people can reach a really long way. Other people can get their foot on the same grip as their hand and then stand up. I sure as hell can't. I was never one to have great upper body strength, so discovering that it isn't a necessity was great news. What wasn't great news is that there was a bigger enemy than subpar arm strength, hidden, lurking near the summit of every climb. This enemy was fear. Even when I started climbing, I'd get up high and then I'd look down and go, ooh. Every move after that was a little harder and each breath a little faster. But everyone told me, don't worry, just keep climbing, you'll get over it. And you know what? Yeah, they were right. But I got over it. I mean, it still bugs me a little to this day. So as I climbed, I became gravitated to what a lot of younger climbers tend to gravitate towards, bouldering. Bouldering is climbing short walls. It's about 4.5 meters. But there's no safety gear, just crash mats on the ground. It's incredibly free, and it is honestly fantastic. It's my favorite discipline. In fact, I think it will be for quite a long time. One of the reasons it's great is because you basically can't get hurt, right? Wrong. Boom. I fractured my ankle. I was barely a month into my project, having a lot of fun. I was climbing harder and harder stuff, and I was feeling great. But then I had a foot high up in a move we call a heel hook. My foot slipped off, and I came spinning down to the crash mat. Just like that, crutches, moon boot, no more climbing. For those of you who fancy yourself medical experts, this was my diagnosis. For those of you who are like me and speak English, basically, I rolled over my foot. I crushed everything on one side, wrenched everything on the other, and cracked the bone in between. Yeah, not fun. But honestly, I'm not trying to sound like a tough guy, no. But it wasn't that painful. I thought it was a sprain at first. It was only the MRI that said no. The biggest problem for me was the frustration of not being able to move around properly. I was hobbling and on crutches for well over 6 weeks. We even had to work the crutches into the plot of our Class 12 play, which admittedly wasn't that hard. But after a long rehabilitation, I was climbing again, and by Easter weekend, I was on real rock. Now, as I suddenly realized you probably can't see from there, the rope is coming from below me. Wow. So I think I ought to explain. There are 2 main ways that you can be protected by the rope when climbing. Firstly, you have top rope. Here, the rope goes from the belayer. A belayer is someone who controls the rope. It goes to the top and back down to the climber. Here, when the climber goes up, the belayer pulls the rope through, and that way the climber stays safe. But then you have lead climbing. This is where the rope goes from the belayer to the climber. As the climber goes up, they clip themselves into these funny things called quick draws. So they serve as checkpoints of sorts so that you never fall too far. But wait, you can fall? Fear returns. I'd just become comfortable with top rope, and here comes lead climbing to scare the bejesus out of me. To give you an idea of how far you can fall, in this picture, my last clip is here. I am here. That means if I fall, I'll fall down to the clip, and then the same amount below the clip. But you have to add rope stretch, because ropes aren't rigid. Let's see how far that takes me. So that's not a short distance. And now, if I were to be clipping into the next clip, which is up here, this section would be even longer. I'd fall that far below the clip, plus even more rope stretch, because there's more rope involved. Basically, what I'm getting at here is lead climbing is absolutely terrifying. Now, not to put any of you off climbing, it's still lots of fun, but it's probably the most terrifying thing I've ever partaken in. This all leads to my sport climbing project, Sterling Silver. So I spent a really long time climbing this, trying to work out what to do where throughout the whole route. This was my end goal, to lead it in one go. Now, as I was working it out, I was working it out on lead at one point. I took a couple of big falls. One of them I mentioned earlier. We call those whippers. That 8-meter fall is about from here to here. So eventually, I realized this was too much for me. The goal was just too big. The route was too hard, and I was too inexperienced to be able to climb something that difficult. So I had to set the bar a bit lower. And 2 weeks ago, I set out, and for the first time, I successfully climbed it in top rope in one go. It went brilliantly, ignoring a mild panic attack I had halfway up on a ledge. It's not as impressive as a lead climb, but you know what? I actually wasn't expecting to get it on top rope, so yay. But then things got even better. This week, just 5 days ago, I successfully climbed my first red route at Block 11 bouldering gym. Red routes are the highest grade of route in the gym. So, yay. When I look back to see how far I've come, it feels like such a long time ago that I first started climbing at City Rock. I can really see my progress. And this is a sport where your progress is almost tangible. The feeling you get when you match your hands on the top grip of a route that you've been working on for weeks is so fulfilling. Before I finish, I have several people I have to thank for their help during this process. Firstly, my parents, specifically my mother. Rock climbing is not the cheapest of hobbies, and the support and knowledge that you've given me throughout is invaluable. Secondly, I'd like to thank my internal mentor, Simric Yarrow, for keeping me steady and on track the whole time. Lastly, I'd like to thank Max Foll, my climbing partner. He came along for the ride from start to finish, and there was rarely an occasion where I would be climbing and he wasn't there, egging me on and pushing me to my very limits. Waldorf has given us an amazing opportunity here, and I cannot be more grateful. Even if my project isn't the most impressive, or if it is, your choice. it still had a huge effect on my life, and I never would have become so thoroughly hooked on rock climbing if it wasn't for the opportunity. I've been thrust fully into the world of climbing, and I think I'm here to stay. I hope to see some of you there in the future.
It feels almost surreal to finally be up here, presenting the project that has been at the top of my mind for this past half a year or so. But here I am, so I might as well make this a presentation to be remembered. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Thomas Hackner, and this evening I'm going to be telling you about an entire fictional universe that I've unknowingly thought up over the past couple of years, and how this project gave me the perfect opportunity to present to you my journey in creating my own superhero story and setting in motion my voyage to illustrating it into a comic book with limited artistic skills. So, with any story, it's always good to go right back to the beginning, to where it all began. And for me, that would be early primary school, sitting in front of the TV on a Saturday afternoon, watching the early 2000s style of Marvel and DC cartoons. To me at first, they were just like any ordinary action cartoon, a cast of characters running around completing various tasks and going on many adventures, with the typical bad guys getting in the way every now and again, with the only twist being that most of these characters could fly through the sky at the speed of a jet plane, or have inhuman strength, or read minds, and many other wonderful abilities. My interest was sealed when I was about 12, after I stumbled upon the MCU, or Marvel Cinematic Universe, when I watched the first Iron Man movie, and then the first Captain America movie. And now, as I'm standing here, I'm reluctant to admit I've watched all 24 movies at least twice. But going back to 12-year-old me, what really grabbed my attention wasn't Iron Man's arsenal of high-tech suits, or Thor's ability to harness the power of lightning. What really grabbed my attention was the way all these characters were their own unique selves, all having unique personalities and ways in which they interacted with each other, and how all the stories throughout the saga bound together into one cohesive storyline. To me, this was all at the roots, for when my own characters started appearing in front of me a few years ago, at first I saw them as ordinary daydreams from when my mind would wander. However, over time, I found myself putting more and more thought into these daydreams. Who are these characters? What are they like? What are their powers? And that's exactly what I did. I gave them names and personalities and random powers which I thought were cool. By the time I was halfway through 2020, the project was on the minds of everyone. Some of my classmates knew immediately what they were going to do, but I wasn't quite sure on what to do yet. Thankfully, some light would come to that dilemma when I thought back to what was the objective of this project: to take an interest one has and develop it further, or develop it into a skill, or explore that interest in further detail. I began to think of the story that was slowly developing in my mind, and how I wanted others to be able to see it the way I could. But obviously I would seem nuts if I tried to explain it verbally. Obviously I'd seem nuts. I thought about, explore in further detail. I began to think of the story that was slowly developing in my mind, and now I wanted to, sorry. So I started thinking about how I could put it into an understandable format. I thought about how most superhero stories first started out, and the first thing that popped into mind was a short and action-packed comic book. I began to think of the story that was slowly developing, and this image of my concept story becoming the pages of a comic book, and the project as a means to make it a reality, all swirled around in my mind. But I was holding back. I wasn't sure if I was going to make this my grade 12 project, because I knew I was going to be taken on a monumental task, given my limited knowledge of how the making of a comic book actually works and my not-so-great artistic skills. But eventually, I pushed through and selected just that as my project. Little did I know that I'd basically taken a knife to a gunfight. But I dived right in and started with a few practice sketches all the way back in December of 2020, as well as wrote down the terminology for the story that I had in my mind in a 2-piece of writing, which can be viewed in my journal. Unfortunately, this momentum was short-lived, because if I was the hero in my own story, then my rival would be the infamous villain known as Procrastination. And before I knew it, it was April and I'd barely made a dent. I told myself I needed to pick up the pace, but I needed a better understanding and more knowledge on this topic. So I did what any other teenager would do and resorted to YouTube for answers, which actually proved helpful in some areas, like how to lay out panels, and I learned exercises in how to draw characters, which I really needed. But I soon discovered I was missing something. I needed someone who I was able to communicate with on this topic, and thus began my search for an external mentor. I began by asking around for advice on how to approach this task, and before long I was pointed in the right path, by sending out emails to various local comic artists and illustrators. This was scary at first, because it was something I'd never done. I had to learn how to word my emails so that the people I would be sending them to would be intrigued in what I had to say. Unfortunately, to this day, many of these emails go unanswered. However, going back to that time, to my relief, a reply did come when Nizar Solomons, author of the Soldier 3 series, kindly accepted my proposal. We had our first meeting in early May, where he answered all my questions regarding this process. I now had everything I needed to get on with this. Unfortunately, my battle with procrastination was still raging, and the rest of the month went by with little progress. By the time June came around, I was starting to feel the pressure, and I kept on telling myself that the June-July holidays would provide me with the room I needed to breathe. However, when these came around, I did actually take the opportunity to write down my plot and start on developing my characters. I wrote down my plot as a plot line in my visual journal, suggested by Nizar. I also gave a name to my story, Pathways, which was fitting to the way I had scripted my characters, inspired by the MCU, to all work in their own unique way and interact with each other along the story. I also managed to get started with my first final ink page during this time. However, I wish I'd used this holiday to its full advantage, because when it was over, I was left with a lot of planning and half of one complete page. I was in the final countdown till the presentations, and I really did not have much work. It was also at this time that the tears started rolling. It dawned on me that I wasn't going to be able to accomplish my complete goal of having Pathways as a comic book. And this was probably the darkest time for me during this process. And I was contemplating giving up. But then I thought back to what was at the core of my goal that I'd set for myself, to tell others the story that had been in my head for all these years. Wiping away literal tears, I paged through my journal and saw the characters I'd already drawn, even though my art was questionable. I saw the effort I'd given into explaining the way my world works. I thought to myself, I've come this far, I might as well continue with what I have. And I did. I really fleshed out the story. I started practicing art by dedicating entire pages to one character. I wrote down the personalities and names of all these characters in little blocks in my journal. And I managed to get started with my second ink page. I was also proud that I'd got underway with going on with my second ink page, and seeing the two side by side really showed me that I was actually capable of something. This was a bittersweet moment. Even if it wasn't what I had thought, or even if it wasn't what I had envisioned, I was starting to take pride in what I was creating, and I pushed through with this all the way until earlier this month. Just the other day, I was paging through my journal again, with the last time being June. And I realized I'd completed the essential goal that I'd set out to do. This project took on a form I thought would never happen and became something very personal to my own character. It tested who I really was and gave me challenges I could not put off or talk my way out of. So, with all that in mind, what did I actually accomplish with this project? To put it plainly, a lot more than I'd anticipated. I'd managed to develop my artistic skills to a point where I was happy with the characters that I was portraying, even though I was no Leonardo da Vinci. I had proved to myself that I was capable of what I personally should give myself more credit for. I still have a long way to go on this journey of mine, but the project gave me a chance to make a substantial impact on my dream of having my story completed. And after everything I've given, I owe it to none other than myself than to take this forwards and have pathways as the completed comic book I'd envisioned. But before I do that, I would like to acknowledge those around me who helped me through this process. Miss Rayner, thank you for giving me the advice I needed on how to overcome the obstacles I faced, as well as allow me to hear myself say my accomplishments out loud. Nizar, thank you for giving me the instructions I needed on how to take the pieces in my mind and put them together in one clear picture. I hope we'll be working together in the future. And finally, thank you to my family and classmates who listened to my stress-induced rants. All in all, I'm grateful to everyone who helped cement my path for my dream to become a reality. Thank you.
Justin, you left your speech. That's it. Finding my voice. Good evening, everyone, and of course, class 12. I remember first joining Constantia Waldorf in grade 9. I was quickly introduced into the curriculum of Waldorf. The projects were on everyone's mind, including mine. The years went by, and here we are, class 12. I first would like to start my speech off by saying, well done. I congratulate every one of you. Every one of you has truly made me proud. I watched every single one of you grow throughout this process. I also saw how for some of you, this project was going to be the death of you. But look where you are now. Well done. As we drew closer and closer to class 12, I was already thinking of what I would do on the night, what path I would take for this process. The first idea was writing poems and performing a monologue on the night, but this was an area and skill that I was familiar with. Creating a movie. I'd already asked some of my friends to be a part of it. This was still an area I was familiar with. Until one day, two little birdies guided me on a completely different path. Thank you, Brianne Norwitz and Gareth Davies. They both helped me to step foot on another path. This one was also going to be beneficial one day for my acting career. It was then, during ceramics in class 11, I decided to take the challenge to learn how to sing. I did love to sing. Well, more like tone-deaf screeching at home. I'm sure my parents were thrilled that I was learning how to sing, or just really embarrassed that the whole entire world was going to hear this horrible tone-deaf screeching. Before the end of class 11, I asked the lovely Penelope Perrin to be my internal mentor. She was thrilled and happy. We both hugged and said our goodbyes for the December holidays. Later, during the holidays, I contacted Keaton Manwaring if he could be the singing teacher at Waldorf, if he could be my external mentor and teach me how to sing. The first lesson was over Zoom. Listen, Keaton didn't say I was bad, but I had potential. Time flew by. Singing was becoming an everyday routine, and slowly but surely I was getting the hang of it. The screeching stopped, by the way. I'd written in my journal the songs I'd like to learn and to even perform for the night of the project presentations. Keaton and I practiced and learned a good variety of songs, like Memories from Cats. This was the song that we first looked at. We moved on to Phantom of the Opera and learned Angel of Music and the Music of the Night at a later stage. And a song that we practiced for a while was As Long As He Needs Me from Oliver Twist. My voice was truly starting to mature, and I was starting to develop a singing voice. I even had the privilege to sing with Mia and Nina in one of our singing lessons. We sang Angel of Music, and they were proud. I had a lot of inspiration behind the scenes to write my own song and sing it. I was reluctant to sing my song for some time. February was when I then sat down and ended up writing it. Moa was now born. I then knew this was a new challenge I definitely should take on. Keaton was thrilled and I was thrilled, and there was a new challenge for both of us to work on. Well, the month of May came along and I had to face a new challenge, away from singing. I struggled with breathing through my nose, which was also, affecting my singing, so I took it upon myself to get it sorted out. The surgery was finalized for the 12th of May, and I was not allowed to sing for 2 to 3 weeks after. I was stressed that I was going to fall behind. The first week after surgery, I got ill. There were a few complications that weren't detrimental at the time. I went back for my checkup to see how my nose was healing. Something went wrong. My nose developed an abscess which was slowly infecting my body. I was submitted into an emergency operation. This time, everything went smoothly, and I was back to singing after a month of missing it. Keaton and I briefly studied pop songs and learned Ribs by Lorde to get the feel of what my song was going to sound like. Keaton and I slowly but surely worked on creating this song. He did such a beautiful job with it, and I couldn't be more grateful. We both brought it to life. The last 2 months were warm-ups and the song, and warm-ups and the song. Every day it sounded better and better. The name of my song is Mirrors of Addiction, M-O-A, Moa. It has a deep and personal meaning behind it. Before I move on, I would like to just say that this is a trigger warning for anyone who battles with anything with their body. It follows and shows the battle I've had to face with judging and criticizing my body in the mirror. It was an unhealthy battle that I had to deal with, but tonight I'm more than thrilled to sing it for all of you. I'd like to give a quick thank you to the people who supported me through this process. Thank you, Mia and Nina, for allowing me to steal 1 or 2 of your singing lessons. And thank you, Mia, for sitting out during your singing lessons to hear the song for the first time. My family and friends, you all know who you are, who supported me, as well as some of you who had to listen to my singing every single day. The biggest thank you goes to Keaton. I would not be standing up here if it was not for you. You helped me bring my song to life. You inspired me and helped me to find my voice. Thank you for sticking by my side and teaching me how to sing. And the next big thank you goes to the lovely Penny for guiding me and holding my hand here and there. You allowed me to find my independence on this project and gave me the inspiration to keep moving forward. Thank you for supporting me and understanding that I work slowly with my procrastination. I know that we both didn't see each other that much, but just seeing you on the school grounds and seeing your beautiful face and smile grounded me and calmed me down. You two have been such humble and wonderful mentors. I'd also like to thank myself. I challenged myself throughout this process, and I delved deep with my emotions, especially with the song. And I would like to thank someone else who was very special to me. who shared her gifts with me, I definitely would not be the person I am today. Thank you to my granny, Cherry Fisher, who passed away 4 years ago. So this song is for her and my past and future self. Now, please don't expect a Madonna or Freddie Mercury tonight. Thank you. Oh, God. You wake me up from my bed. You tell me, you guide me, you take me to my place. I don't really want to go, but I go, but I go. You tell me, lift your head, look at me, look at you, as I'm staring, touching, grabbing and glaring, touching, grabbing and glaring, as you stare back at me with the glare of despair, as you stare back at me with the glare of despair. The loophole I'm screaming from, trapped in an everlasting reflection. I'm too deep in my stare to look away, look away. You tell me, lift your head, look at me, look at you, as I'm staring, touching, grabbing and glaring, touching, grabbing and glaring, as you stare back at me with the glare of despair, as you stare back at me with the glare of despair. I'm looking at you, even though I don't want to. I'm looking at you, even though I don't want to. Caught in my own mirrors of addiction, caught in my own mirrors of addiction. Thank you. I played it well. I know that I...
Everyone for coming tonight and watching, and especially our guardians, Anya and Cedric, these are for you. And we also have some flowers for our class. We don't have very many, so everyone might have to get just a small one. But yeah, we're so proud of you, and you all did such a fantastic job. You should be proud of yourselves.
Thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and thank you everyone for joining us online.
Yeah.
Woo!